Hello, and welcome back to the U.S. Chamber Foundation's Tech Forward series. I'm Hillary Crow, and I'm pleased that you've joined us today for a deep dive into the reality of NFTs. If this is your first time tuning in, you might not know that at the Chamber Foundation, our mission is to educate the public about how business does well, does good, and prepares for the future. So it's that last bit that we're going to focus on throughout this series. Every month, we're going to bring together leaders from tech and industry to share their expertise and insights on new trends and technologies to really help us unpack and demystify some of these complicated technologies that are impacting our work today and in the future. So whether you're a small business, a large business, you're in education, retail, manufacturing, we hope that you will learn something new and help us to ask the right questions of our experts as we go along. So today's topic, NFTs. We are delighted to have three experts here with us today to really share their knowledge and insights. So first, I will have the pleasure of interviewing Arry, who's the chair of the U.S. Blockchain Coalition. Hello again. Hopefully you can see me this time. Sorry for the technology difficulties before. So picking up where I lost you, I am delighted to soon interview Arry, the chair of the U.S. Blockchain Coalition. As I mentioned, she will guide us through what we need to know about NFTs, the current landscape, and the potential for the future. And then we will hear from Constantino, crypto journalist and vice president of global corporate communications at IQVIA. And he's going to talk to us about how small businesses in particular can really use NFTs to kickstart growth and innovation. Finally, we will have crypto queen Maliha Abidi, who's the founder and artist at Women Rise. And she'll talk to us about the importance of increasing diversity and accessibility in tech. At the end, panelists will join me on screen and we will address the questions that you, our audience, have submitted throughout the program. So be sure to enter those in the chat as we go along and we will cover as many as we can. We have a lot to cover and a lot to learn, so let's get to it. Arry. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, Hillary, for having me.
Okay, so I want to start really with the basics here. NFTs 101. What is a non-fungible token or NFT?
Right. Like you said, NFTs stand for non-fungible tokens. So I'm going to start by talking about fungible tokens, not NFTs. So fungible tokens are like what we use every day. I like to draw the example of if I take 10 quarters, some quarters may be from 1950, some quarters may be from 1990, or you might have some quarters from 2020. Put them all on a table, all the quarters are worth 25 cents, right? It doesn't matter which one I pick up. Uh, a non-fungible token, like an NFT, is a unique digital asset. So an example I would say is, what if I took 10 pieces of art, and one of these pieces of art was done by a 6-year-old, whom I adore and think is very, very valuable. Or another piece of art might be from the famous Van Gogh. Not all of these pieces of art are worth the same. So you could pick up one that's worth millions and millions, or you could pick one that's worth a lot in my heart, but not worth that much. So that's what a non-fungible token is. Right now, we see the use cases like in the digital world. You could see like video games. You can have unique swords or weapons, or you could have unique racing cars or outfits. You can buy these unique assets, and they're tradable and are create them. And we're very, very early in this NFT rise. We saw the rise originally back in the Bitcoin days with the color coins. We saw it back again in 2017 with crypto kitties. It was only a little teeny little blip. But we saw the big rise and big hype around NFTs come out in 2021 in January. And so we're still very, very early. Most of the use cases and projects you see in NFTs are basically about a year or less old. So think infant stage in its life's journey. Does that
Okay,
answer your question?
yes, definitely. Building on that, and I like the analogy to art and also to money. Um, I know we've seen a lot of questions come in from the audience on this topic in the past around, how are NFTs and blockchain or cryptocurrency related and connected? Could you explain that for us?
They're connected because they use the underlying protocol or the technology that they're built upon uses blockchain or blockchain-based technologies. And so that means they're most likely sitting on the Ethereum blockchain, which is probably one of the most popular blockchains, but other blockchains also have them. Um, and as we have been evolving through this technology, they are starting to become more interchangeable. But ultimately, it's just because they're sitting on the blockchain, which means they're unpermissioned, they're accessible, they're open, they're transparent. Anybody can create them, anybody can use them, anybody can trade them. That's basically what it means at in human speak terms.
Okay, so how can you buy an NFT, and what should someone consider when they're thinking about purchasing one?
Yeah, so it's not that straightforward yet. The technology is evolving, so maybe someday in the next year, 2, 5 years, you might be able to just swipe your credit card and have the NFT arrive in a ready-to-go wallet for you. But today, most cases, you have to go and change your US dollars or whatever currency you're using to a blockchain-based currency, most likely Ethereum or Ether. And then, that means you have to open up a wallet and make that happen. And then you have to figure out which NFT piece you're trying to buy. There's lots of platforms that sell them. OpenSea happens to be one of the more popular ones. That's OpenSea, like the ocean sea, OPENSEA. And then you would do the transaction using the cryptocurrency. But it's not that straightforward because cryptocurrency isn't that straightforward quite yet.
Right. And as you mentioned earlier, the NFTs that most of us have probably seen so far are ones we've seen on social media that are considered art and collectibles. But how else are NFTs being used right now?
So, like I said, the current wave of use cases that we see in NFTs really started in January of 2021. So we're really early. I mean, like basically toddler or infant stage. So the art use case, as you mentioned, is the most popular one. But we have heard of, different use cases that aren't that far from like the art use case. Like, you've seen Coca-Cola or Starbucks or these different Adidas large brands launch NFTs, but they function very much like a piece of digital art. Consumers can buy them, and then they have a collectible. And these brands have been able to raise lots and lots of money, millions of dollars, for various charities that they've launched these projects for. Different other use cases are like the musical ones that I think are quite interesting. Like I think Snoop Dogg is all in on NFTs and he's trying to do more with it, but he's still in the creation phase. I don't think we've actually seen the results of his experimentation and what he's actually going to create. And so I look forward to seeing the results of that, once he launches it and it goes out into the marketplace and we see how it lives and exists in the marketplace for a year or so afterwards, then we'll be able to see, what actually did work or didn't work with the Snoop Dogg use case. Some other bigger artists like Timberland, they've used it to give some of their fans some extra perks or access to their, specially produced music that other consumers don't have access to. And so a lot of it may be around experiences, but again, we're very, very early in those types of experiences.
Right. And when we spoke last week, you mentioned that we are not even scratching the surface yet of NFTs. So to that point, what do you think it will look like, as this evolves? What does this potentially look like in the future?
I mean, if we go out, say, like 10, 20 years when we're in a fully digitally native universe where we exist in this thing called the metaverse that people have been talking about, and we have unique digital identities that can be proven and verified, maybe these sort of NFT experiences will allow artists to um, continue to earn on their works of art for years to come, even after the initial sale. I think that's a really interesting use case. Like, I'm thinking of famous artists like Beyonce. Maybe she comes up with a really great record. It changes hands multiple times. Every time someone listens to it, she earns a small percentage of the royalty, and maybe the royalty decreases over time as we go out 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, who knows? But she can decide on what those business rules are. Other types of NFTs might be related to real estate. Again, we're really, really early on this, but say I have this house, there's an NFT associated with it. We actually can't have multiple owners of a house today, a consumer home. But what if you had an NFT that multiple owners could have? Someone could invest in it and buy 50% of it, and the person that actually lives in the home would own the other 50% of the NFT. And as the house appreciates in value, everyone would partake in the appreciation of the home. I mean, those are just two of the ones that I can think of top of my head, but we're still really, really early. Think of it like with the internet back in, 1990 and 2000. 1 year in, we couldn't think of all the use cases that we see today. And so as we head into a digitally native future, I mean, our imaginations are limited by the analog world that we live in today, even though it is partly digital.
Awesome. Well, that was very helpful for me. I'm seeing tons of questions coming in from the audience so far. I'm going to save these for Q&A at the end. But you mentioned metaverse, so I just have to give a plug that our last episode of Tech Forward was all about the metaverse. So if anybody missed it, you should go to our website and check it out. But we are out of time for this interview, so I will go ahead and turn it over to our next segment on small businesses and NFTs. Thank you.
Thank you.
everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to be here, Hillary, and to the Chamber Foundation. It's truly a thrill. I'm Tor Constantino. I'm a writer for Inc. magazine. I write for MotleyFool.com as well as Fortune magazine, where I write about cryptocurrencies and a variety of different applications that might be applicable going forward. And I wrote a piece specifically recently about small business applications for NFTs. Ari went and gave us some good examples and a good base and grounding as far as what they look like now. But we are, as she said repeatedly, in the early days. But there are still some applications that could really be applicable even today for a small business owner or a founder. One instance that I would like to share is there's an author. He recently had an NFT airdrop and he issued 1,000 NFTs, and anybody who signed up for that got a percentage of his movie. When this book ultimately gets sold to a movie, those owners of those NFTs would get a percentage. And those NFTs were, as Ari outlined, just it was a graphic JPEG that had a token attached to it, but was also linked to a blockchain transaction. So it was kind of an amalgamation of three things. And each of those NFTs are unique. They're not replicatable. Even though someone might be able to take a copy of that initial JPEG, they don't have the token and they don't have the transactions that validate that I am the sole owner of those NFTs that I own in that regard. So that's one instance. A few other just top line examples of how NFTs might have relevance for a small business owner. You could think of it as like a ticket, like to a concert. And small business owners could use these as single use promotional tools. You could have coupons, you could have promotional discounts that are represented in a NFT type of QR code, or just as a design of your company's logo with a specific type of number or even a barcode on it, perhaps. It could be also an event ticket at one of your establishments. It could be a special invitation only for customers who have a certain threshold of use case. So then you could also kind of, aside from single use opportunities, you could careen into a loyalty program where you might issue a specific limited edition of, let's say, 100 of these royalty NFTs or special loyalty NFTs, if you will. And those individuals who download it onto their phone, as they come in and use your goods or services, they can accrue points and get other benefits and added value for that particular loyalty program or NFT that you've enabled them to participate in. Another example is, as was alluded to, was charities and for fundraising for cause-related marketing. We saw that being used very actively as recently as the Ukraine situation. And it was also used for the Empower Afghan Women's program in the aftermath of the turmoil that was going on in that country. So those are good examples of, if you have a special cause, whether it's women's shelters or it could be the SPCA or animal support in your particular neighborhood, or it could be anything like supporting a park or a church or something. You could have a fundraising activity around there and also build your brand as associated with that cause related marketing. Another good example, being conscious of time here, my apologies for keep looking at my watch. Another good example is for actual fundraising. The interesting thing about NFTs is that they can be designed and a program could be constructed in a way by a creative founder to actually raise money for their business or for a particular cause or for if it's a nonprofit, they could raise it that way as well. One of the biggest challenges that I've seen with Kickstarter personally is individuals who throw up a Kickstarter campaign and then unscrupulously meander with the money and just take off with it, and you feel kind of jilted and scammed. If it's built on the blockchain using NFT protocol, that doesn't happen. The money doesn't get dispensed until the specific milestones or the smart contract associated with that NFT are completed. And so that's a good way that people who might invest, if you're an owner and you want to build a new wing to your pizzeria perhaps, or buy a new pizza oven, the money might not get dispersed until you've done specific protocols that you promised to meet. as a condition of those funds being released. And then the last use case that I think is very provocative for small business owners is the idea of sweepstakes or gamification. As we've talked about and heard from the past chamber foundation program that they had here on Tech Forward, the metaverse is all about gamification. Well, you can pull some of that gamification into your own community. Imagine if a chamber of commerce sponsored a community-wide NFT for local businesses, and then people could have a scavenger hunt and download the NFT at each business that they visited, and then at the end they get some sort of reward or some sort of benefit or even just sense of pride as being a participant in that local community. All of that will be more than possible. It's possible now with the current technology, but it will be more possible as people accept them and get used to this idea of NFTs being more than just a music file or a JPEG. I think one of the things that Ari mentioned that was really interesting is this idea of ownership. That I think is the most provocative use case of this. It's ultimately going to, in my opinion, I think down the road, we're going to have on our device, we're going to have our medical records, we're going to have our credit histories, we're going to have we'll be able to vote using NFTs at one point. And you're like, what? It's just a crazy JPEG. It's a cartoon. How can that be a validation for voting? Well, the thing is that they're using it right now in the city of Denver, where they are voting for city councils using the blockchain. And it will come to that point where one person, one NFT, one vote. Don't laugh. It could be coming to a voting booth near you pretty quickly. So those are just some of the applications that I think and that I envision as being most applicable to the use cases for NFTs to small businesses. And we're only limited, as Ari said, by our own imagination. And as more people adopt them, it's going to be the norm. And mark my words, 5 years from now, all of us will have an NFT in one way, shape, or form on our iPhones. It's coming. So with that, I will wrap up my segment here regarding the use cases of NFTs for small businesses. And thank you so much. I will now introduce my friend and colleague, Maliha Abidi. She is an author and an artist and founder of Women Rise, and she wrote this book, which I happen to have a copy of, and I encourage you to get a copy because it's fascinating and insightful reading. So, Maliha, it's an honor and a privilege to get a chance to meet and speak with you as part of this panel.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Tor. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited for this session and to talk, all things NFTs here at Tech Forward.
So, Maliha, a couple of the questions that I was wondering if you could answer as we get into this discussion here. How and when did you first get into the NFT space?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a forever ago, but it was honestly earlier last year in 2021. My husband had come up to me and he was like, "Hey, have you heard of like NFTs? We should watch some YouTube videos. Let's check it out." And he's really supportive of my art, and that's why he, as Ari was mentioning that like a lot of NFTs are like focused on art at the moment. So that's why he thought that it would be interesting to me, and like he mentioned it to me. But at that time, I was actually working on my book Rise, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? I have no time right now to think about anything else. What are NFTs? I can't right now." Fast forward to summer, August, and then I saw something, I think in the news or something, and then I was like, "Oh, remember you mentioned NFTs?" And then we started to like learn about it together. So that's basically like how I first heard about NFTs, and I was very interested in it because I saw it as another way for me to share my art and express my creativity with others. But the more I learned about it, I was able to see that there are so many other applications to NFTs as well.
That's a fascinating introduction. And a question that I have, I'm a little curious. Did you face any sort of roadblocks to getting started, either from a technological standpoint, or what were some of those obstacles that you yourself experienced getting up to speed in the NFT category?
Um, so I don't like to think about it, and maybe my answer would be different on a different day. But I think like one of the great things about this space is that um, you can, you don't have to ask anybody's permission, but at the same time there are some very clear obstacles for somebody who may not have the same resources. So I did like have some roadblocks, but like I said, like I don't like thinking about them, or like like talking about it too much. I think the more I kept on diving deeper into the space of NFTs, and the bigger the community at women rights got, there were so many things that I admired about the technology, about the space, about the community, and at the same time, there were so many things that we were seeing as a team, and I guess as a community as well, that we thought that okay, that can be improved, and that can be like we all need to contribute to. I think one of the great things about being early is that yeah, you're early and you're able to see everything from the starting point and you're able to contribute to it, but then it's a huge responsibility as well because you're literally there setting the foundation. So yeah.
I think that's a great answer, and your explanation of not wanting to focus on the negative but focus on the positive and bringing more people in and being holistic is a great perspective. To that point, how would you describe the current demographic of NFT creators and collectors within your space as an artist?
I think the current demographic, we definitely need people from other parts of the world, and it may not be as easy as we think it may be, because like in countries like India and Pakistan, like I'm originally from Pakistan, people are aware of NFTs. They are enthusiastic. They are so creative and they have amazing ideas, but there are restrictions around regulation or even technology or again resources. So the current demographic, like we do need to work hard to change it. I also oftentimes I feel that everything to do with NFTs and metaverse, a lot of this is very US centric. Um, but if you look at the US itself, it's a very diverse country, right? So it's really ironic to me that everything that like we're most of the conversations are in English. So there's that language barrier as well. A lot of the events that happen, conferences that happen, they're taking place in the U.S. And so like the current demographic, I feel like we need definitely more people from around the world, so that we can again build the foundation in the right way so that we don't repeat the same mistakes that we have seen in business and tech, especially, and just build a more a space that's welcoming for everyone.
Those are great observations. And I know that shift needs to occur, and obviously we'd want to see it sooner rather than later. In your perspective and where we're at right now within the space, do you see that shift taking place in months or years? Do you think it's going to be a bit longer?
I think it's definitely going to be years. The funny thing about Web3 or the NFT space in general, because Web3 is like really broad, the NFT space in general is like currently we see a lot of impatience. We see people asking for constant announcements, and the current state of the market, people are just not able to cope with it as well. They just don't know how everything went from like so fast to the way it is at the moment. And the again, another funny thing is that nobody can control the market, right? So before, the founders, the teams, the communities, they were working at an unrealistic, unsustainable speed, staying up all night, Twitter spaces, being on Twitter all the time, Twitter threads, Discord is active. Like everything was just too much. And um, at the end of the day, it is social media, you know? So when things got a bit slower because of the market, it impacted people's mental health. It impacted, of course, people's financial situation. It allowed people to take a step back and reevaluate the space as well. But at the end of the day, the current state of NFTs, we need a lot more patience. We need to keep remembering that we are at a very, very early stage. And if we truly want to create something that is sustainable, that is beautiful, that is different than what we have seen, you know, previously. We do need, firstly, more here. We need a global perspective, and we need a lot of patience because currently a lot of the things are happening in, again, U.S., Europe, UK, or these kind of countries. They're not happening. You know, in it's not allowing things to happen in other parts of the world, or at least at the same speed. So that's another reason why we need to be patient. It's not just that we need to wait for the technology and innovate properly. It's also that, you know, so that we can hold hands together and then proceed together. So I feel like, yeah, that's my perspective on the current state of the NFT space.
Again, great insights all around. Now, anyone who's familiar with your work knows that you're not only an artist, but you're also someone committed to getting more women involved in the cryptocurrency, the NFT, and the broader digital asset space overall. Now, how can we make NFTs more inclusive and more accessible to everyone and anyone that might want to join?
That's a lovely question. So there are certain initiatives that we have taken, we have set in Women Rise. Our my at least like my team and I, we look at things, everything from like an artistic lens. So we are like, we want to use art to involve people. So currently, at the moment, we have this incredible residency going on, Voice HQ, in collaboration with Voice HQ, where we have brought together amazing artists from marginalized communities, and they are creating beautiful art. They're minting their artwork on the blockchain. We are able to tell their stories. We're able to amplify their work, and that's one of the ways how, you know, you can include women and include people from all different backgrounds, because art is something that it's not like English, or art is something that you're able to connect through, regardless of what language you speak or where you're from. And we have a very diverse group of incredible, talented artists in that residency. Other than that, of course, education is a huge part of having anybody involved in this space, because I remember my early days of entering the NFT space and trying to do the project Women Rise, and we decided 10,000 tokens. Why 10,000? I still don't know, because I saw a few projects and I was like, oh, okay, 10,000 is the number, but there is no blueprint. That was my mistake, you know, to think that okay, 10,000 is like the blueprint, but there is no blueprint to do an NFT project. And I didn't even understand the idea of generative art. And I was like, oh my God, it's going to take me 2 years to, you know, create 10,000 pieces. So these are the kind of like, you know, questions that somebody who's completely new to the space may have. They may have something like, you know, anxiety, or they may feel nervous just because it's tech, it's business, it's completely something new. They may not see somebody like themselves in this space just because of how new the space is. So, you know, there's so many different things that we need to keep in mind. But I feel like education is another way. And at Women Rise, one of our ambitions is to use art as a tool of storytelling so that we can welcome more people, because that's something that I've been doing through my own platform for 10 years as an artist since my teen years. I've been, you know, creating art to talk about causes and to express my creativity, and, you know, just to communicate with people as well. So that to me is my way of communicating, and that's what we're trying to do with Women Rise as well. And we couldn't be more excited. But it's just, you know, it's going to take a lot of patience, it's going to take a lot of innovation and hard work. And we're really excited about it.
What a very thoughtful answer, and again, it makes sense as we wrap up our section here and transition over into the Q&A section for the broader panel. But Maliha, thank you so much for the education and the insight. I found it very helpful personally, and I think that that type of thinking and that type of approach going forward is only going to invite and bring in more diversity and more women into this particular space, which is so very exciting. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was so wonderful speaking with you, and I'm really grateful for Tech Forward for having me. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to have a contest to see how quickly we can answer all the questions that have come in during this session from the audience. There's been a ton of great questions and lots of audience members liking other questions that have come in that have put them to the top. So I'm going to start with the ones that have been most liked, meaning that the most people seem to want answers to these questions. So starting with you, Arry, and sorry earlier for mispronouncing your name. Audience is asking, how have NFTs been affected by the slide in crypto prices? Oh, I think we're having trouble with your audio. Maybe in the meantime.
Oh, I had muted myself. Can you hear me now?
Oh, great. Yes. Now I can hear you.
Sorry about that. It's affected the the NFT space quite a bit. I think we've seen I think the last number that I saw was 88% decline in active wallets that hold NFTs during this downturn. So it's significantly affected the NFT space. So yes, it's we're in the time of the bear right now, and the crypto space. Entities are part of the crypto space. We see these cycles every 3, 4, 5 years or so, and so we'll continue to see this as adoption increases. We're still really, really early, and we haven't hit a point of normalization quite yet. So, just as long as you expect this to have its ups and downs as we get to closer to a mass adoption, and that mass adoption may be 5 years, it may be 20 years. Just need to take in patience and build and continue to iterate.
Okay, next questions for you, Tor. Question from the audience is, what sectors are most suited for NFTs, if that really applies from a small business standpoint, and how can a small business get started initially?
I honestly think any business, and that's not a cop out. I think it's true. I mean, if you have customers, I think that there is a way to interface and interact with customers and provide them some sort of added value. I think that personally, a good example, I think, would if you own a small car dealership, there could be a way down the road where you go through and you eliminate the tax, title, and fee aspects of it because those things could be on the blockchain. So as far as starting first, I think a great way is now during the bear cycle, as Arry said, now's the time to learn. And now's the time to educate yourself. And there's plenty of resources out there. I recommend going to CoinDesk. I recommend going to Cointelegraph and even the Binance Academy. They've got a lot of really good resources out there to help you get up to speed in a very step-by-step systematic order just for NFTs. And I would also then start looking at finding, and you don't have to be the creator of all of these different types of components. You can outsource that very easy and very quickly. I see Maliha nodding her head. Absolutely. That you could be able to outsource that to Upwork or to other to your community college or other students in our class, just to help create some of those aspects. And you can hire a programmer very quickly to help get you up to speed and test. But I think that that's the thing. First, test a little bit, understand it, and then you'll see the application yourself and how you can apply it to your perspective type of business. I think the true promise of NFTs is to eliminate businesses where there are the middlemen. And if you're a middleman provider, if you provide like title searches for homes, legal services, you're going to want to get up to speed quickly on NFTs and see how you can integrate those into your offering suite so that you don't get eliminated when this becomes much more prevalent in the next 5 to 7 years.
Thank you. That's great advice. Maliha, one of the most liked questions we've received so far is, where can interested people find your art?
So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I love TikTok. It's really cool. On different platforms under Maliha Z Art. And for Women Rise, you can just type Women Rise NFT, or you can Google Women Rise NFT, and you'll be able to find our link tree and different platforms for our community and our project.
Great. And a quick follow-up, somebody from the audience is asking, the cost to mint NFTs is so high right now. Does it make sense to do it now or to wait? What do you think?
So it depends on what kind of community do you resonate with, right? So there's so many projects that I've seen that are doing free mint as well. And if you are wanting to get into the NFT space, project, give free NFTs, and that could be your first NFT, and you can just kind of test the waters like that. I always say that to be a part of this community and this space, you do not need to spend, loads of money. You can just start with joining a Discord or a Twitter. Please be mindful of your mental health because it can get too much, and it is social media at the end of the day. Yeah, there's so many different ways on how you can be a part of the space, and you can either do it right now. I mean, ETH is at a pretty decent rate. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, while we're on the topic of art and NFTs, we actually at the foundation took some time to see what the process was like for ourselves and created our own NFT. So you be nice, but what do you think about the NFT that we created, if we could bring that up on screen? Great. So it's a little bit of branding and promotion for this series here, but it was exciting to jump in and see what that process was like for ourselves as we were getting up to speed and prep for today's conversation.
Nice.
We are running out of time, unfortunately. We'll have to do a follow-up because there's at least a dozen more questions we haven't gotten through from the audience. But thank you, Arry, Tor, and Maliha for joining us today. This has been a really insightful conversation.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It was so amazing.
Thank you all for tuning in today. Hopefully you've learned as much or more than I have, and will continue on this journey with us. Our next program will be on August 23rd, so stay tuned for details, and we will see you in the future. Thank you. Bye.